Hello, we're live again. It is again June 18th. This particular feed is at 6:55 p.m. Go to my video that was aired this morning for a rerun of my talk. This email was sent on Wednesday, April 17th, 2019 at 8:23 p.m. Wednesday, April 17th, 2019 at 8:23 p.m. on the subject of Trump's collusion. President Donald Trump, in a meeting with Russian President Putin in Helsinki, Finland, had no tape recordings and no other evidence of dictation found or given. This, along with Roger Stone and Paul Manafort's lying, and both of their discipline in not talking. Robert Mueller had no evidence that he could use concerning collusion. The lying of Stone and Manafort covering up the collusion question, no matter what jail time that would come to them, and the promise of a possible pardon for President Trump to Stone and Manafort hushed the question of collusion evidence from Mueller and the investigations. Mueller cannot use that incident against Trump for his collusion with Russia. According to the law, the defense would say, objection, that is mere speculation. They would need to get a confession from them. An attorney might try it, but that would be objected by the defense. Yeah? The defense would object to that, and the judge will say sustained. But if the jury would use their own mind in thinking, they may not need that kind of evidence. They may make up their own mind and look at the circumstantial evidence instead. Mueller, in his final report, did a great disservice to the people of this country. He drew nothing on the question of did the president collude with Putin and the Russians. In so doing, he brought this country into further injustice and wrongdoing, much of it by President Trump's misdeeds and rhetoric and lies. He's even doing this after the statement by Barr, basically clearing him of collusion or propaganda, they could say. Trump so far is encouraged by the statement of Barr's to go on with the blame game. Mueller should have at least offered in its final report that the question of President Trump and collusion should continue to be investigated beyond he and his staff's conclusion into this matter. This United States of America continues to fall into their shame of injustice needed and of their deeds of crime and lies. Mueller has, at the end of his work, brought this United States to even greater power. That is not really his fault. It is the political system and the law's fault. And he adhered to, he didn't want to go against the DOJ's opinion that he can't indict us to the president, but why not? They, Stone, and Manafort took a cue from the Nixon tapes that were found hearing President Nixon talking to his people about the cover-up that brought President Nixon to resign. Do not take discussions to your collusion when those things are being talked about, or any other evidence that will give away the truth about the conspiracy of collusion with Russia. Lie and lie and lie some more. Cover up and cover up and cover up some more. Whatever, be disciplined. No opening up of your mouth that would incriminate yourself and President Trump, even if it means going to jail. What about those questions of paper that Trump answered from Mueller with the guidance of his lawyers Rudy Giuliani and Jay Sekulow that were not answered in a court setting? The two lawyers for Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani and Jay Sekulow, covered up for him and helped him get around those questions of paper from Mueller. Those questions and answers were not under oath. All three, Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and Jay Sekulow, can manipulate and concoct anything that can get around the truth of any matter. The questions do not have to be in a court setting and under oath. but can be done in a relaxed and take your time setting with no one around. You notice how long it took them to send the questions and answers back and forth. One can even overcome questions by saying, I do not recollect. They, somewhere in their conscience, could have some suspicion that Trump could have colluded with the Russians to become president. But of course, Trump has a talent for hiding the truth and getting away with lying. He has in all his life hired corrupt lawyers. Donald Trump could look you in the eye and lie, and you believe it because you very well want to. Just like President Richard Nixon lied to George Bush Sr., and George Bush Sr. believed it because he wanted to. President Trump, Roger Stone, and Paul Manafort, they do not obstruct justice. They colluded or conspired to take a pick with the Russians. What obstruction from them is there? You either colluded or you conspired with the Russians. You either colluded or conspired with the Russians, or you obstruct justice. You lie and hide and cover up your collusion or conspiracy with Russia. Obstructing justice is what William Barr and the Republican Party are. Obstructing justice on behalf of President Trump, Roger Stone, and Paul Manafort. Giuliani initiated and offered that himself. He said that collusion is not a crime. So what if Donald Trump did? It is not illegal anyway. He made a case for collusion himself and then squirmed out of it by again babbling some gibberish like he had done throughout the process. One of the presidential campaign staff was a person named Carter Page, who the so-called dossier spoke about as being associated with the Russian Kremlin. That part of the dossier is true. He was also with President Trump's campaign team. He was a subject of a FISA warrant. This was cited by the so-called dossier as being associated with the Russian Kremlin from 2013 to 2016. And he was with the Donald Trump campaign committee as an advisor, but left when he was cited by the Christopher Steele dossier. He offered Vladimir Putin that when President Trump was president, that the sanctions levied on Putin and the Russians will be taken away. These sanctions were put in place by President Barack Obama, which put an end to Trump's and Putin's deal for Trump Tower in Moscow, fueling the animosity that Donald Trump has with Barack Obama. After Trump became president, Trump set out to undo all the policies that then President Obama put forth. Donald Trump had plenty of motive and opportunity to collude with the Russians. For one, he could undo the sanctions on Putin and Russia. And two, he could change all the United States policies that the United States had with many of the other countries that he thought were bad for his own business and family. These are two of the reasons for his motive and opportunity to become president of the United States. He needed Putin and Russia desperately. The Trump family needed money. Their financial world was torn. Another known Carter Page, another known him. He unwittingly admitted to it on the Laura Ingraham show, Fox News, of the dossier, claiming that he was an associate of the Russian Kremlin. Laura Ingraham asked him the question, and when he admitted to it, Laura Ingraham, being flabbergasted, shouted out, "But Carter, can you see why they are pushing this about you? Can you see that, Carter?" Quip. Carter Page should have pleaded the Fifth Amendment before Laura Ingraham and not answered it. No coincidence. He had motive and opportunity. When the polls of various organizations came out with their poll results showing Hillary Clinton being up pretty good, with so very little time of making that up, Donald Trump went into desperate mode. He knowing that there were much evidence against Hillary Clinton, such as those emails, the debacle at the United States Embassy, and he already allied up with Vladimir Putin, knowing of the Julian Assange WikiLeaks act. This was a perfect opportunity for him to turn the nomination around into his favor. To build up his global financial empire, he would need to gain government contracts. He had the type of business that had a need for the use of government and contracts. Government contracts. He could not get them by being just a businessman. He needed to be some kind of a government official. What better way he could get this done than by being the President of the United States, with his family being part of the government themselves? A few years back, he was on his way to getting a contract that would land him a business deal with Russia for a Trump Tower in Moscow. That fell through, of course, when then President Barack Obama levied sanctions on Russia's businesses that took down that deal. As just a businessman, that didn't work out. As being just a businessman, that wouldn't work out. And it did work out. As the President of the United States, he could get this done and more, but not one iota did he know how government works, especially with the checks and balances system the United States is run by. He is in total shock and bewildered, still trying to force the government to do his business. He does not want sanctions levied on the governments that want to be in his business with him. The only time he allows sanctions is when he is forced to. He would have to allow it because he had no choice in the matter. The United States Congress has control of that. But as the case of Iran, according to how he sees it, Iran's deal with the United States was a bad one for his business. He had to get rid of that deal and contract a new one that he sees will benefit him. Iran is the number one supporter of terrorism, not good for business. As in the case of Saudi Arabia, he believes he has a great need for them for business. And even the very horrific murder of Khashoggi cannot stop him from his great desire and need for benefiting from his relationship with Saudi Arabia. In other words, he is putting his business propositions first, before the United States policy, domestic and foreign. This is what he means by his quoting the phrase "America first." He means him and his family first. President Woodrow Wilson's campaign slogan was, "He kept us out of war, America first." President Harding, President Coolidge, and Senator Robert A. Taft, who was a U.S. Senator at the time, shared Harding's America first ideas. President Coolidge brought the same ideas to government. Harding and Coolidge is where Donald Trump looks to have his ideas from. This is why he was so very anxious to run for presidency of the United States and to win, even if it was not without cost. Dubious people need dubious ideas, dubious relationships that can pull through their dubious schemes. When you consider all of his business ventures with foreign leaders and countries around the world, what better position to be in than to be the President of the United States, where he could make the best deals for himself with a tremendous benefit going to his family. His taxes are a good indication. He proclaimed himself to be a nationalist, but all the while he knew that he needed the global economy for making deals. He needed it for his business to survive and to make up for his bad investments in the United States and the world. Again, he had big-time motive and opportunity. Again, no coincidence, he had motive and opportunity. When the polls of various organizations came out with their poll results showing Hillary Clinton being up pretty good with very little time in making that up, Donald Trump went into desperate mode. He, knowing that there were much evidence against Hillary Clinton, such as those emails with the Bible at the United States Embassy, and already he allied with Vladimir Putin, and knowing of the Julian Assange WikiLeaks factor, this was a perfect opportunity for him to turn the nomination around in his favor. To build up his global financial empire, he would need to gain government contracts. He had the type of business that had a need for the use of government. He could not get them by being just a businessman. He needed to be some kind of government official. What better way he could get this done than by being the President of the United States, with his family being part of the government himself. A few years back, he was on his way to getting the contract that would land him a business deal with Russia for a Trump Tower in Moscow. That fell through, of course, when then President Barack Obama levied sanctions on Russia's businesses that took down the deal. As just a businessman, that didn't work out. As the President of the United States, he could get this done and more. But not one iota did he know how the government works, especially with the checks and balances system this United States is run by. He is a total shock and bewilderment, still trying to force the government to do it his way. He does not want sanctions levied on the governments that want to be in business with him. The only time he allows sanctions is when he is forced to. He would have to allow it because he has then no choice in the matter. The United States Congress has controlled that. But as in the case of Iran, according to how he sees it, Iran's deal with the United States was a bailout for business. He had to get rid of that deal and contract a new one that he sees will benefit him. Iran is the #1 supporter of terrorism, not good for business. As in the case of Saudi Arabia, he believes he has a great need for them in their business. And even the very horrific murder of Khashoggi cannot stop him from his great desire and need for benefit from his relationship with Saudi Arabia. In other words, he's putting his business propositions first before the United States policy and listing the crime. That is what he means by his quoting this phrase, America first. He didn't put people's lives in danger, in jeopardy. His point was himself first. President Woodrow Wilson's campaign slogan was "It kept us out of war, America first." President Harding, President Coolidge, and Senator Robert A. Taft, who was a U.S. Senator at the time, shared Harding's America first ideas. President Coolidge brought the same ideas to government. Harding and Coolidge is where Donald Trump loves to have his ideas from. And maybe that's the reason why he doesn't really want a war against Iran. This is why he was so very anxious to run for president of the United States, to win, even if it was not without cost. Dubious people need dubious ideas with dubious relationships that can pull through the dubious schemes. When you consider all of his business ventures, the foreign leaders and countries around the world were better positioned to be in than to be the president of the United States, where he could make the best deals for himself with a tremendous benefit of his debt. His taxes are pretty good indication. This is the first part of a two-part speak on the subject of Trump's collusion. You'll see the second part tomorrow, June 19th at 11 o'clock a.m. Thank you for tuning in. Tune in tomorrow and tell your friends to hook us in.